You're listening to the Spend 10K a Day podcast, brought to you by the performance marketing experts at Mute6. This is your source for cutting-edge insight into the world of online advertising from the team with more Facebook case studies than any other agency on the planet. Here are your hosts, Steve Wise and Stuart Anderson.
Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Spend 10K a Day podcast. Operating live from the beautiful confines of the Mute6 recording studio in Southern California, specifically Santa Monica, West LA. Yes, we are in paradise. Welcome, Susanna, my co-host.
Hey, Steve.
How's your day going today?
Good. Another day in paradise.
Yep. Who doesn't love this place? It's amazing. We're on the West Coast. Got beautiful smog that we're breathing every day, and see the sun every once in a while. It's really cool.
Hey, we have the view of the beach.
Yeah, that's all that matters. As long as you see the beach once, your mind becomes relaxed. You're like, oh, the beach. So today we have a really interesting topic. I'm sure a lot of listeners have been following the news, and Facebook has been in the news. There was a debacle. We call it a debacle with privacy. Facebook and Cambridge Analytica structured a quiz about 4 or 5 years ago where they extracted, that's a good word, right? Extracted Facebook customer data, actually in the tune of 87 million profiles that they got access to and got behavioral insights on these profiles. And it set off an alarm across the whole world pretty much of like, wow, what is this crazy company doing? And people weren't mad at Cambridge Analytica. They were mad at Facebook for allowing this one company to manipulate the results of a political campaign. And that's kind of where it all came from. Cambridge Analytica. They wouldn't even be in the news unless they, but they're in the news because they worked with the Donald Trump campaign. And it's made this whole new sense of awareness around privacy, which has an impact on us performance marketers. And this whole podcast today is us discussing, what are the effects, the after effects that the Cambridge Analytica crisis, we'll call it a crisis now, has on the performance marketing industry. Susanna, you kind of came into this podcast with a very open mind, I would say, with the whole controversy, which is great. I wish I had an open mind to it, but I've been pinged with question after question after question about it. Tell me some of your thoughts on.
Well, I want to know, take a step back. What's the trigger? Because this has been going on for a while. How did this come to fruition?
So the Donald Trump campaign, the POTUS, he hired Cambridge Analytica, this magnificent marketing company in London, to actually, I'm not going to use the word magnificent, this embroiled, this terrible marketing company in I guess, LA, London, wherever they're based, to help them with digital marketing. And this company set up profiles or custom audience profiles on specific users and promoted, specific political facing content to these users. Obviously, right-wing content that's going to spur, action within a segment of voters. And the issue or the debate is, did they extract customer data? Yes, they did. Did they manipulate those users, that audience data in a way that helped Trump win the election, which was unfair? Yes, they did. And now the issue is there's a lot of people who are very, I hate to make this a political kind of conversation, but there's a lot of people who are like, that's not fair. Like how I had a lot of my data got compromised. I think everyone who is on Facebook and Instagram, understands that their data could have been compromised, and now there's a huge sense of awareness that everyone's talking about. And I think Facebook's a company that really, I've always thought, values customer data from the early point of when they started. I remember I had to register with my college email address back in the day. I'm sure you guys
same.
You remember that, and I don't think that they had any malicious, intent by allowing these third-party developers, these third parties, use this data in a way. But again, they didn't have a segment of rules at the time that would really regulate the API and what people can pull from the API. So it definitely had a negative impact, and from a press perspective. But
so Cambridge has this data that they got from Facebook?
Yeah, so the way I interpreted it, Cambridge Analytica extracted what they did this personality quiz on around 87 million people, and they extracted this data, and then they used this data to re-upload into Facebook for custom audiences and build obviously other segmentations of people off of this data, and they use that in their marketing, quote unquote big data.
So were they using they were just making these fake pages, or
I think it was a combination of making fake pages, call them fan pages around specific topics, using that customer data to build profiles, lookalike profiles off these users, just a whole bunch of, from an audience perspective, from an ads perspective, a whole bunch of unique ads based on a very small segment of audiences. It just shows how important audience data is inside of Facebook, of how you could easily manipulate your campaigns just by having an unfair advantage on audience data.
So then they had this data, and then they went around and they created content that's supposedly manipulating the viewer to vote a certain way.
Well, I don't think they created the content. I think what they did was they promoted specific pieces of content that raised specific senses of awareness. It was a form of manipulation. Obviously, if you keep serving the same type of content to people to incite and rile up specific users, obviously right-leaning content, stuff that what's wrong in the country, obviously very right-wing, whether it's around immigration, whether it's around all the topics that Donald Trump became president about. I think that's kind of where they started. And Facebook and the public, everyone, that we look back on this, regardless if you like or hate our current president, we look back on this specific turn of events and say that was they had an unfair advantage because they had this data. And then obviously the people who had whose data was manipulated, they're like, wow, I don't have a sense of privacy anymore. What I post to Facebook, all my life, which I share with the social community now, is being compromised. So it raises this new sense of awareness, and I think that's why you're seeing the Congress in the United States is really getting involved. You see that the European Union is getting involved, and everyone is really bringing forth this new sense of awareness that Facebook, you have to really be thoughtful about the way you use customer data. And I think it's really interesting because as marketers, we use that data to really serve the best possible ad to the best possible user at the best possible time, and it's really going to have an impact on us. Yeah,
it's really interesting because there's the controversy in how they access the data, or is the controversy in the manipulation, or both? It sounds like did they get the data fairly?
No, they didn't get the data fairly. I think that's where the real sense of controversy or debate comes from, is that they had access to the Facebook ads API, which is obviously what developers use to plug into Facebook and build technology around Facebook data and around their infrastructure. And what Cambridge Analytica did and what other companies have done is they've used this API to really build technology around it that'll use Facebook data. And in this specific instance, I think that they built a technology that extracted customer profile information in a way that was obviously not very real, not very good for the public. It was very intrusive, and I think that's where the big debate is. And Facebook made this API readily available to developers like Cambridge Analytica to build technology off of. And it's a great segue into performance marketing and how this specific turn of events, this specific time in history, I think performance marketing is going to change. Facebook started off as a platform to connect people socially, to make your friendships, closer. That's how it started. And when they saw that, they were aggregating a large amount of people's lives, people's data of what they're doing on a daily basis. And I think they saw that this could be a great medium to serve really targeted ads.
Yeah.
And they didn't at the time when they started, they didn't actually have, I guess, either the developer resources or the knowledge at the time to really build the most insane, the greatest advertising platform ever built. They didn't have the resource for that, so they worked with what you call third-party developers. And there was this program called the Facebook Marketing Partners Program, which developed out of that. I'm sure you've heard of the the famous companies that have, great companies that have grown out of that program, which is, the AdRolls, the Nanigans of the world, these giant advertising agencies that have built technology on top of Facebook. And I think those are the companies that have used this Facebook data to not only run ads on Facebook, but to target ads all across the internet, and using these profile data, using the login data to really serve better targeted ads. And I think right now people are starting to see that, listen, you can't freely give out this data to companies. There has to be laws, it has to be regulated, and Facebook, obviously didn't want to tell anyone what they were doing or how they were doing it, but now Congress is involved, so you're going to start seeing that Facebook is not going to readily make available their ads API to companies. I feel like the future is not building off of Facebook data. Initially, it was like ad tech companies would build off of Facebook data, and I don't think the reality is that's not going to happen anymore.
So you're thinking that because of this event, one of the things that we're going to see in the future is less accessibility to the API.
Yeah, I think it's going to go away. A lot of the ad tech companies building off of Facebook right now, whether you're working with a company to do Instagram Insights or Facebook Insights from an analytics perspective, or you're working with a company that does ad serving on Facebook, you're going to have to go within Facebook's core service to do all your ads and do all your analytics. And I think that's going to be a big change, and it's going to be for the companies that do really good work, on Facebook, marketers that produce great content. You're going to see your business pick up, because now you're going to be going against less programmatic buying from third parties, and you're going to start seeing that it's going to be more manual buying on Facebook Ads Manager, which I think is going to be a really breath of fresh air for companies like Mute6 that are always competing against the programmatic partners that plug into Mute6's API, that plug into Facebook's API. So we're excited about that. Also, there's an exodus of some advertisers, which, oh well, goodbye.
So it would be like more humanizing.
Yeah, I mean, from a marketing perspective, it's not going to be as programmatic, as algorithmic from a third-party perspective. It's, it's going to be a very level playing field, which I love.
Yeah. So how does that affect like some of the clients that we have, like e-commerce clients that we have? Is there any benefit that they're going to be seeing as a result of what we're going through right now?
So you're asking is from the Mute6 partners and companies that we operate.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be a positive impact. I feel like Facebook is going to do a lot better job policing the platform and making, the right choices when it comes to privacy. I mean, they have to earn back the trust of consumers, and I think they're doing the right thing. And I think what you're going to start seeing is that it's going to have a positive impact on CPMs. I think a lot of the programmatic buyers who are using, third-party technology to beat the system are going to go bye-bye, because they're not going to have access to that data anymore. We're already seeing that with partner categories going away. We're already seeing, I think your Facebook behind the scenes is still going to be using this data to optimize, but this data to actually run specific ads to is going to go away. So I think it's going to make it an even more level playing field where Facebook is going to kick out all the bad actors. Obviously, we saw today that any type of political ads are going to be labeled political ads. Any type of next, if you do have custom audience data and you're uploading custom audiences, email addresses, you have to be perfectly forthright in how you got that email data. You can't just upload a list of emails and expect Facebook just to target ads to those emails. So these are all really good signs that Facebook really cares about privacy, and they really want to create a level playing field for advertisers and also harness the power of social and really earn the trust back of the consumer.
Do you know how Facebook is going to ensure that the custom audience that is uploaded is legit?
That's a good question. I think that they're all trying to figure that out now.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe the old pinky swear promise. Where, we'll put our pinkies out and pinky swear.
Right. I wonder if it's just like, check here if it's legit or.
I mean, Facebook's in a tough position. I feel for we built a great business partnering with Facebook. They've always been really good to us, and I hope that they can earn back the trust of the consumer, because they're an amazing platform. What they've built is legendary. Obviously, in the history of what we call discovery marketing, there's never a place where you could build discovery-focused campaigns at scale. So I hope that Facebook can earn that trust back, but also really focus on safeguarding and building a walled garden around their data, because that's the biggest thing, is people need to trust Facebook with their data.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, and this event could be a blessing in disguise because at the end of the day, the viewer is what is telling the marketer and the advertiser what they want to see. And if they're unhappy, us as marketers are going to ensure that we can provide content that they like because we want to see those conversions come in.
Yeah, the content creator is the person that runs the platform, and I think you really have to value that relationship a lot deeper. I think that Facebook it's a great learning experience. I mean, anytime you have your CEO testify, in Congress to really talk about your data practice and talk about how you guys think about consumer data, it's really creates a sense of awareness that maybe you could do more. Maybe there could be more they could do to really make sure that people's data and their personal lives aren't compromised. And just remembering that how personal Facebook is. I mean, I've shared my life story on Facebook. I've been on it since 2007, and I think that you can't take that for granted. You can't take people's lives for granted. I think that's something that we're going to start seeing. I think that as they improve that, you're going to start seeing people come back to the platform. I don't think anyone's really left. I don't think Facebook or Instagram is going away per se, but I do think that this is a wake-up call. It shows that we're not invincible.
Yeah, it's fairly Facebook's been around for quite some time. However, it's still fairly new, and they're still learning, and it's growing really fast.
It is, and I think that people are learning to deal with the realities of life. We don't have privacy in this world. I think anytime you have the Facebook app on your phone, you're talking on Facebook Messenger, that data is being shared. It's being recorded. When it's not just Facebook, it's Snapchat, it's Google. We live in a time in humanity where everything we do is kind of mapped out, and there's really no getting away from that unless you want to go radio silent. And
absolutely.
Just being aware of that is the number one thing of really making sure to be cognizant, aware of what you share on social media, because if you don't, you're really going to get yourself in over your head. And I think it's bring up a lot of different things that we're, as a human public, we're not really aware of.
Well, I think that's great information, Steve.
Yeah. So
really in depth.
No, I hate to take it off marketing. This is obviously a customer acquisition focused podcast. We want to really bring value to all of our listeners. I care about each and every one of you. I want to share what I learn about marketing and psychology, but this is something that's I felt really compelled to talk about because it has effect on all of us. We're all, whether you feel your competition with anyone, like we're all in this together. And I think that's the reality of the situation, that if something happens to Facebook, it happens to all of us. And we all have to kind of work together to create a better marketing ecosystem. Yeah,
I think you did a great job explaining it really clearly too. I think a lot of people had some questions about it. So
to conclude on this podcast, 3 or 4 things that are going to change. Number 1, partner categories is bye-bye. Number 2, you are going to have to certify some of your Facebook custom audiences. That's going to be coming in the near future. Number 3, you're going to start seeing, in my opinion, if I'm predicting the future, some of these ads API partners and some of these analytic partners are also going to be regulated. They're not going to be readily available to, the developer program is going to change. So if you are considering building tech on top of Facebook and Instagram, I would say to be you're walking eggshells right now because it's a very tumultuous time to be a developer on these social programs. So I'd say really focus on that. And number 4, lastly, but I think the way to win long-term at Facebook and at digital marketing is creative. Building a sustainable creative, a way to generate creative, whether it's UGC, whether it's building your own creative team. I think that's what's going to make people win in the long run. I think that's what I highly recommend companies as they plan for the future is to really prioritize building the right team around creative.
Absolutely. Wonderful.
Great podcast, everyone, and stay tuned for our next podcast. There's a number of topics we'll be discussing after privacy. I know this is kind of a little sad one, but it is happy. We're all aware. Now we're all aware. As I look at my cell phone on the table, I see that people are recording me, and I just want to say hello to all the people that are recording me that aren't on this podcast. Anyway, I hope everyone has a great weekend, and we will be back next week.
And if you have any questions, feel free to send us a message at our Facebook page at Mute 6.